I was never manipulated again after hearing this, said Andrew Carnegie. For a long time, I did not realize what was happening. I would leave conversations with a strange feeling of loss, even when everything seemed calm. There were no arguments, no raised voices, no open confrontation. And yet, when the conversation ended, something always felt wrong. Sometimes it was a work meeting, other times a negotiation, sometimes just a casual conversation. But the pattern was always the same. I agreed to things I did not fully want. I accepted decisions that were not in my best interest. Or I stayed silent when I knew I could have guided the conversation differently. What disturbed me most was this. The other person barely spoke. That was when I understood something crucial. I was not losing arguments. I was being emotionally guided. This realization only became clear after I came across a teaching attributed to Andrew Carnegie. It was simple, almost unnoticeable, but it completely changed the way I enter conversations to this day. Most people enter conversations trying to convince, trying to prove they are right, trying to win. Carnegie did the opposite. While others rushed, he slowed down. While everyone spoke, he observed. While many reacted, he remained in control. He understood something few people notice. Conversations are not won by logic. They are guided by emotional climate. Andrew Carnegie did not build power through money alone. He mastered human behavior. He knew that anyone who tries to win a conversation too quickly loses leverage, and anyone who loses emotional control hands over control of the situation. Manipulation rarely looks aggressive. Most of the time, it comes disguised as politeness, as curiosity, as phrases that appear to offer freedom. But the goal is never your decision. The goal is your reaction. When someone rushes you, pressures you, or pushes for an emotional response, the game has already begun. Carnegie understood this clearly. He believed that he should never enter a conversation trying to win. He entered trying to understand. At first, that sounds weak, passive, harmless, but it hides a powerful principle. When you try to win, you speed up. When you speed up, you react. When you react, you expose yourself. And whoever becomes emotionally exposed loses control. Carnegie knew that the most dangerous person in a room is not the loudest one. It is the one who listens carefully. There is a precise moment in every conversation, a moment when the other person expects your reaction. If you justify yourself, they gain ground. If you defend yourself, they gain ground. If you explain too much, they gain ground. But if you remain silent, discomfort shifts sides. Silence is not weakness. Silence is emotional discipline. Carnegie used silence as a tool, not to escape, but to guide. He understood that when you do not react, the other person reveals themselves. When you do not rush, they speak too much. When you do not defend yourself, they over-explain. When you do not react, they contradict themselves. And at that point, power quietly changes hands. Manipulators rely on three things: urgency, emotion, reaction. Remove those three, and the game collapses. Carnegie mentally evaluated every conversation with simple questions. Does this person want to solve something or dominate? Are they giving me space or rushing me? Do they want resolution or an emotional response? If any answer pointed to control, he slowed down even more. Here is the most counterintuitive part of Carnegie approach. When you stop trying to win, the other person loses leverage. Most people fail because they want to finish the conversation quickly. They want closure. They want relief. Carnegie stayed. He listened. He observed. He waited. Without confrontation or force, the conversation slowly began to revolve around him. He guided the dialogue with simple phrases. What made you think that? Can you explain that further? Interesting, go on. These phrases sound neutral, but they invite depth. And anyone who goes too deep eventually exposes themselves. Carnegie also knew exactly when to leave a conversation. He believed the conversation should never end at the peak of emotion. The right moment is when the other person has already said too much. By then, their narrative weakens. The control has already shifted. You leave without conflict. without argument, without justification. Once you understand how conversations truly work, something changes. You begin to notice who rushes you, who forces decisions, who seeks reaction instead of resolution. From that moment on, you no longer react. You observe. You guide. Exactly as Andrew Carnegie did. And perhaps his most important warning was this: the person who loses emotional control gives away control of the conversation. Once you understand this, manipulation becomes much harder to repeat. Because now, you no longer enter conversations to win. You enter to understand. And the person who understands the game never plays from a position of weakness again. And this understanding creates a quiet but permanent shift. You stop feeling the need to explain yourself to everyone. You stop fighting for approval. You stop wasting energy proving your value in conversations that were never fair to begin with. Instead, you become selective. You choose when to speak. You choose when to remain silent. You choose when a conversation deserves your energy and when it does not. This is where true confidence is born. Not from dominance, not from aggression, but from emotional stability. Carnegie understood that the strongest position in any interaction is neutrality. When you are not trying to impress, intimidate, or defend, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability unsettles manipulators. They rely on patterns, on emotional triggers, on urgency and pressure. When those patterns disappear, they lose direction. This is why calm people often seem intimidating without trying. They do not rush. They do not overreact. They do not chase validation. They listen. And listening changes everything. Because the more someone talks, the more they reveal their intentions, fears, and weaknesses. Every extra word becomes information. Every explanation becomes exposure. Carnegie knew that power does not announce itself. It waits. He also understood that not every conversation is meant to be won. Some are meant to be observed. Some are meant to be endured. And some are meant to be exited quietly. Knowing the difference is wisdom. When you apply this consistently, something unexpected happens. People begin to approach you differently. Conversations slow down. Pressure disappears. Not because you demanded respect, but because your presence sets the tone. And once you experience that shift, there is no going back. You no longer fear difficult conversations. You no longer feel cornered by aggressive personalities. You no longer confuse silence with weakness. You recognize it as discipline. That is why this lesson lasts a lifetime. Because it does not teach you how to dominate others. It teaches you how to master yourself. And the person who masters their own emotions can never truly be manipulated again.